Alright, so today we're going to start off by having everyone take this piece of paper that I give you and draw what you think heaven looks like in your mind. You take as long as you need to get it as accurate as possible. Here you go, bro. And just let me know whenever you guys are done.
I'm done.
Okay, good.
At least my marker doesn't work.
What?
Do you need another marker?
Here's the thing. Are you done with yours?
Yep.
You a fast guy. I never got out of kindergarten class.
Dang it, I messed up. Seriously.
I don't remember the last time I actually did anything.
Okay, done.
Hey, all I've got is some people. You're doing better than me.
Okay. Can I really take it long?
Feel free to make it as accurate as you possibly can. Just whatever your heaven, whatever you think heaven will look like. You get there. Bryce, it's very good.
I don't know. Very creative.
It'd be
Very
super
Really
impressive.
what I think. Stupid. So I don't know what it's going to look like.
Hey,
And we're going to be
I
happy.
said happy people everywhere.
Hey.
You already know it's going to be pretty gay.
Oh, yeah.
The golden road, the yellow brick road.
The wizard.
No.
I hope
No
there's a
wizards
lot
in
of
heaven.
food at this big table that I'm
I don't even know.
Are we allowed to talk?
Yeah.
Sweat.
Sweat.
She said sweat.
They're really not my feet or something.
That is gross.
Alright.
Until everyone finishes. Some people's heavens are a little bit more intricate than yours.
What?
I just don't know what it's going to look like. So that's why.
Fix it.
Alright, the game is done.
I can't even make
Perfect.
stick people look good.
Okay. Is yours done? You
Whoa.
just hold on to it.
That's legit.
Yeah, you said
Who's the
yours
bearded
is
guy?
bad. I can tell you have a rainbow. Someone with a beard. I'm gonna say that looks like a house that's on the water, but I'm gonna hope that's grass.
Jesus is balding.
That's awesome. What? Jesus is balding.
Well, he's
I
bald.
like that.
He's bald and has a beard.
I like that.
It's a big table with all kinds of
You lost me a beard, dude.
This is the pathway.
That would mean that you'd have to look like Bryce.
No.
Got him.
Or I look like.
Jesus actually has freaking
Blasphemy.
muscles.
I said no.
Okay, here's my happy people with a big table of food.
Pippin, what you got for us?
That's done.
It's going hard over there,
Pippin's is
guys.
gonna be super good.
No, I'll have this blue.
Here,
I
you
have
want,
brown.
you want,
I have brown.
Everything's made of poop.
Cloggy's heaven. Can I draw a dragon at heaven?
If you think there's a
I
dragon,
already have
in
a
heaven,
castle, so why not make a dragon?
and then you can put Shrek next.
I'm gonna draw a giant god. The god.
Yeah, that's
What do you mean God's gonna be at heaven?
Maybe. You're
No,
How do you draw a god?
That's a good question. It's a whole other lesson in itself. We will not be learning how to draw God today, guys. I apologize.
Can we learn just how to draw?
Next time.
There's the cloud. There's their cloud.
The cloud?
Big,
Are you
you
drawing
drew
a
a
bubble?
Big foggy cloud.
It's the bill of cloud.
Oh.
And fire. It also has luck.
It was like a teal-eyed beast with 5 ears and 17
Oh, yeah. Oh, look. I forgot about the big giant creature with all the eyes. Is that what you're drawing, I don't know. I didn't draw that.
7 seals.
Or.
Literally seals.
Literally see it.
Or.
Mine. Those are birds, but screw it. Why not? I mean, I didn't mean to say screw it.
That's okay. You say whatever you want.
We've been talking about foggy all the time.
Alright, dude. There's my heaven. It's a fortress.
Alright. As soon as Pittman finishes up his beautiful artwork.
You might want to just come back to me.
Okay.
Are you done? Okay.
Let's, would any of you guys like to share to the rest of the group what your heaven looks like? And just describe it to them and explain maybe why you chose to put those aspects in heaven.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, Will?
Okay. So mine has lots of stick figures, and they're all happy. Every single one of them. Some of them don't look happy, but they're supposed to. And then I wrote "happy people everywhere" because my drawings suck that bad. And then I have a big table full of circles that's supposed to be food, and it's the big table of food. And I envision a lot more, but I can't draw it all, so I figured that was good enough. There's lots of happiness.
Alright, would anyone else like to share? Matt Dirksen?
Alright, well,
As you can see, there's a castle on a cloud
Okay.
with the golden brick road, just because I felt like Wizard of Oz, and the pearly gates. And I even went to draw an
You
American
obviously
flag.
haven't been there.
Alright, you know what? Why not?
Okay.
God we trust, you know? Not for long.
You don't, if you'd like to
You
stay.
haven't been to heaven, Dirksen.
So, my heaven, I don't know if you guys can see. So, you got, this is the river between
Ooh, it is a
heaven and,
river.
heaven and earth.
Way to put me to shame, J-Mac.
there's the bridge. These are the guards. There's guards with flaming swords.
Flaming swords. That's
Yeah.
impressive.
And they're the ones who guard them. And there's God is in the presence there. Cloud, and also God and Jesus.
It's weird.
And all the people. There's a rainbow and stars, and a big giant table full of food, and everything just glistens with
Wow,
gold.
you copied my idea, dude.
There's so much food that every single time food reappears out of nowhere.
Dude,
Dude,
that
that
was
is
right.
bad.
That would be the best. Josh
So,
just
yeah.
won.
Chicken fried steaks and mashed potatoes all
Oh,
day.
my
With
Every
watermelon
And you
every
never-
time.
And you never have to,
Protein shakes.
and you never have indigestion.
To ask me to hang my phone.
You just can eat as much as you want. You won't bring it. You won't feel sad. You'll be happy
Alright.
for this year. Everyone's happy.
That's an awesome picture of heaven. Would anyone else like to share?
Sure.
Sure.
I just want to see
So-
what Dirksen says.
I made a the tree of life. Well, it's supposed to look like a tree of life.
Okay.
And it points. There's a little stone that points and says it's a tree of life. So obviously it's a tree of life.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And this is the river of life. So.
Alright. Thanks,
Very
Mark.
nice.
Happy tree.
Alrighty. Would anyone else?
Yeah. Here you go.
Alright, Trenton.
Pippin's about
Here,
to
I'll
make
show
the
you guys
mark.
Trenton.
Oh!
Straight-
Hey!
Yeah.
That's literally what I
Okay.
Can you
drew.
make sure
Basically-
That is literally what I drew.
So the camera.
Okay.
Beautiful
Basically,
heaven.
2FS goes home.
Plagiarism.
castle is higher than you can see. It emanates God's glory, but whenever you go inside, the courtyard is where people can worship.
Yeah.
You did draw
Very,
I
very
like
cool.
that.
Alright, so now I'll go and I'm going to show you guys some pictures that I found on the internet. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Mom.
Of what, like, some popular pictures of heaven might, like, look like just in, like, artist concepts. Here's one.
That's what I drew.
And then we have another one of the gates.
Called it.
Mine looks a lot.
And then this one we have, like, a pathway to God on the throne.
Wow.
And this one is just like just some beautiful scenery that somebody would imagine, like, based on what, like, things that we have on earth, what heaven might look like. This is another one similar to that.
Oh.
And this is just another concept of on earth what we can, like, see maybe points to heaven. And if you were a bunny, this is what heaven might look for you.
Yeah.
All right, so those are some depictions of heaven. And so now we'll go over what exactly did you see in those pictures that were similar in any ways to your pictures of heaven? What were the similarities?
There was no food. Hey, there was a carrot.
Okay, so
I
there
have
was
a big,
food,
I have a big table of food.
There were golden gates.
golden gates.
American flag.
Maybe didn't see the American flag in the pictures, but possibly, yes.
Not sure I want to go to Cloud 7.
So in one of the pictures, there was a single tree in landscape, which was, I mean, very close to clouds. I mean,
Yeah,
he
that's
had
true.
limited colors to work with, but it's very close. So we all kind of have this idea of what heaven might look like, and for most people, it's very similar. Like, we get the same idea about, like, maybe in the clouds, on, like, there'll be gates, a throne, like, things that we've read about in the Bible, and things that, like, just from concept that we, like, determine, like, is heaven. And so, with that being said, we know or have this idea of what heaven is like and how awesome and perfect it's going to be. And so, what are, like, how do we get there is the main question. What's driving us there? And so, in this passage from Matthew 7:21 through 27, which if one of you guys would like to read, that would be great.
I got it.
Bryce, you've got it? Perfect.
So
We can find out kind of how maybe we might enter God's heaven.
1 through 7.
Matthew 21.
Matthew 7:21 through 27.
Oh, it's 7. Alright. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and do many powerful deeds? Then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Go away from me, you lawbreakers. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain fell, the flood came, and the winds beat against the house, but it did not collapse because it had been founded on rock. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the flood came, and the winds beat against the house, and it collapsed. It was utterly destroyed.
All right, so we have this, at the beginning of this, we find out, like, how do you get to heaven? You do the will of Jesus' Father, of God. You do His will. And there's, like, this warning or this danger that if you, like, if it says, like, many will say to Him, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name, do mighty works, and cast out demons in your name? And you'll say, turn from me, I never knew you. So there's this danger of not entering His kingdom because we haven't done, like, His true will. so that raises the question: what is God's true will? And so, in this specific teaching from Jesus himself, it's from the Sermon on the Mount, and he gives us God's will. He gives us what was said and what we should carry into practice today in the New Testament and until this day specifically. And so some of the things that we highlight, I'll use this time as we'll go through an aspect. I'll introduce an aspect from the Sermon on the Mount, and then you guys will discuss just a specific situation or situations, depending on different life situations you may be on how you can use that that lesson from the Sermon on the Mount in your daily life today. And so we'll start with the salt and the light. What does it mean to be God's salt and light to the world in today? And anyone can just chime in and saying how they personally could do that today.
I like the salt. You got to bring flavor to the world. You got to spread the good news. You got to do it in an enlightening manner.
That's really good. So how can you be a light to people in your area, like K-State? How can you be a light to them? In what way?
I always try to be more positive in my accounting class, because everyone's always, oh my goodness, 7:30 in the morning, that kind of thing. And I know I always complain about it here, but when I'm in the classroom, I always try to be more positive and it's not a big deal, but I mean, I always wear MCC basketball stuff to class, and so they know, and it's just kind of just a little thing here and there. We have small groups that we do a lot of group projects in that. Once again, nothing big because it is class. I mean, you're doing accounting, but little attitudes here and there just kind of show that you're different, I guess.
That's really good. It's all about small things, about doing the little things, being a light. You can't be a light just the one time and stand in the middle of campus and give a sermon to everyone and then convert everyone at K-State all at once. That's not what it's about. It's about doing it every day at 7:30 a.m. It's going to class and just showing God's glory right there in the class.
That'll preach.
Through the small little things in life, just a simple act of kindness
Yeah.
opens up a whole list of things that can happen to someone.
All right, and so the next lesson, point from the Sermon on the Mount, is about anger and how, specifically, it has been said that you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says you fool will be liable to the hell of fire. All right, so this one's pretty specific to just everyday life. We get angry about the things, and so just how are some of the ways that whereas you may have used your anger or shown your anger before you were a Christian, or just in contrast to how you might use your anger or show your anger to how you show it now, because we still will get angry. It's we get angry about things, and it's more about what you're doing with that anger, how you're showing it, and what's your direction. And so, what are some of the ways that you handle your anger in a better way? All right, Bryce, you have.
I used to resort to name calling and yelling or attacking people's insecurities if they made me angry. And now I have gone away from that for the most part. And when I get angry, I usually try to just try to walk away from the situation or try to stay calm and not attack the person I'm angry with.
Okay, that's really good. That's a good way to take that anger that you have and just kind of have control over it. You're not showing these bursts of anger towards everyone or lashing out at people. You're able to have control over it. So that's really good. Alright, so I think with time constraints, we should move on to the next lesson, which is lust, and it says, you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. And this one is extremely specific to us guys in the group. And so, what are some of the ways that maybe you just like put some barriers in between you and lust? Like, how do you like try and counteract it? Maybe it's a internet software that keeps you accountable on the internet or something of that nature. What are just some of the ways that we can control this like danger in our life?
On my computer, I have this thing called XXX Watts, and what happens is whenever you put it on there, you hook another person's email up to it, and they'll actually receive email updates of what you've been looking at on the internet. So for me, it's to my dad as an accountability. So if I was to ever venture off, he would get an email and he'd be able to talk to me.
Okay, that's really good. That's how, like, today we have the internet, we can look up, like, and see pornography on the internet so easily, and so it's good to have an accountability like that, to where you're not going to want to look at those websites on your computer simply because it's wrong, and there's somebody to keep you accountable, for it being wrong. There's somebody, like, watching out for you. And that's one of the key things is you're keeping yourself accountable and you're making sure that you're not trying to do everything alone. There's people there to help you and they're willing to help you out. All right. And so the next teaching is on divorce, which is, not as applicable to our group because none of us are married yet. Some of you have girlfriends. Some of you will be married soon. And so... yeah, wait to talk to a girl, that's a step. And so, for the most part, we all know that divorce, he says, you shall not you shall not get a divorce except on the grounds of sexual immorality. And so, that one's pretty simple to follow through for us. We're not married, and we continue not to commit sexual immorality in our lives so that we can later in our life avoid that kind of, that problem in general, keeping away from divorce, because Jesus says, you shall not get a divorce. He says it openly right there. The next is oaths, which I think is more applicable to our group. It's, who are you making promises to? Are you making promises to your family, your friends, your teachers? Who are some of the people on a day-to-day basis that you're promising you'll do something to?
Friends.
Your friends? And what kind of promises do you make?
Promise to go eat with them somewhere. Promise to go lift weights with them. Promise to help them with homework.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And sometimes things get in the way, right?
Yeah.
And you end up forgetting to go to lunch with your friend. You end up having to cancel going to the gym with somebody. And so, what Jesus is saying here in this oath is, let your yes be yes and your no be no. If you're unsure if you can make it to that, decide whether you're going to do it or not right then. Say, hey, I'm going to the gym, and make sure you do it. That becomes your, oath. It's your yes, and let your yes be yes, and let your no be no. So that's something that we can work on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes we forget, and sometimes we're going to mess up. That's just our nature. And so this is where we can, truly work in our life situation on keeping our yeses yes and our nos nos. Retaliation. What are some of the ways that, maybe somebody pranks you or something? What are some of the ways that we retaliate, just here in the dorms, specifically?
I put garlic in Ben Williams' bin.
Yeah! It's justified.
It was actually Tommy's old garlic. So.
Alright. So we have some, prank wars going on, which are funny, But like in seriousness, if somebody is out to get you in the dorms, like it's no longer a prank or a joke, and they're seriously just trying to do harm to you or your stuff. Like they take your stuff and like rip it to shreds or burn it and then like leave it outside. Like they're destroying it, and so instead of like responding how you would the prank way and just like putting garlic in their vent, like you would be. Jesus calls us here to just like turn the other cheek, or essentially not seek out retaliation. Like if somebody comes in and damages your stuff, like I'm not saying like completely ignore it, but Jesus is calling us to not seek to destroy their things or take an eye for an eye. He's saying that you shouldn't do that. You should seek justice in the situation. You should go to your RA or your dorm parent about it. But in terms of just seeking retaliation, Jesus calls us to avoid that. The next aspect is love your enemies, and in that case, who would you say are your enemies? And this one can be tough and a little bit like iffy on whether they're actual enemies or not. But who would you consider like an enemy?
KU.
North Korea.
Okay, North Korea, KU.
Dave Kraling.
Okay, we've got Dave Kraling. And so, what kind of feelings do you have towards these people in some safe words? So hatred towards these people.
Frustration.
You've got frustration. Okay.
Your
And-
computer.
Anything else? It's good. Let me check the computer real quick. And it's still going. We're good. All right. Okay, so you have all these emotions. You have hatred, frustration, like anger towards these people because they've done you wrong. They've written you 1,000 tickets and glued them to your window. Like they've done things that really, really get on your nerves. They really take you off. And so what Jesus is telling us to do here is you're supposed to love your enemies. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. So in this situation, I mean, I know it's hard because, I mean, today he wrote you a ticket and glued it to your window, but you're called to
Yeah.
love your enemies and you're called to pray to or for them. And so, I mean, like, that's very specific. You can practice that, like, tonight. Like, pray for him. Maybe pray for him to stop writing you tickets or whatever it may be. But you are, and all of us are called to love our enemies. And it's a good practice to continuously pray for our enemies because it makes them, like, real people with real emotions and real feelings. And it becomes really hard to hate somebody or call them your enemy if you're praying for them every day. And so the next step is giving to the needy. And so what ways can we, in our experience in the dorms right now, give back to the needy? What ways can you think of?
Invest our time.
Invest our time, good. Through Christian service or any other means.
Yep.
Anything else?
Do like donations, like food drives and stuff.
Food drives, donations, those are good. Yeah. Some other ways we might be able to, like, I know at chapel there's always an offering, and it always goes to Caruso Days and other events that help, like, the needy, help the people that need, like, this Caruso Days, they're going to Mexico. And we can also, at our local church, give to the offering there. Like, there are multiple ways that we can, in our life today, in the dorm specifically, give back to the needy. Our next teaching is on fasting. And this one was specific to the people in their time, saying that you shall not fast when Jesus is around. And you should also, another teaching on this is if you are fasting or in a form of fasting, you shouldn't be doing it because you want to look like you're fasting. You shouldn't be like being like, hey guys, guess what I'm doing this week, and then like share that you're fasting. And so just like this one is just one of those, like, it's kind of like don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing kind of thing. Like if you're doing a fast, like don't go to lunch, sit down at the table, and then announce to everyone why you're fasting. Be like, hey guys, I'm not going to eat this whole week because because I'm trying to fast to learn more about God. Because that's just, like, that's bragging, and that's not the purpose of the fast. And so, our third to last teaching that we'll go over is laying up treasures in heaven opposed to laying up treasures here on earth. And so, what are some of the things that you might be like saving for, or that you have spent a lot of money on and wouldn't trade for anything? This can be electronics or
College.
your maybe college. You're spending a lot of money on that. Anything else?
Well, on something less tangible, I was just talking to Wade. You think of like lifting and stuff. This dude we were praying for tonight was pretty jacked. Now, since cancer, you can't notice him. Like, he's lost 50-some pounds of muscle. It's crazy.
So maybe we're that's kind of specific to, like, Bryce, for instance, like laying up their treasures, and myself included, laying up, like, purchasing workout supplies that cost upwards few $100s a month.
That's why I don't live.
And so, like, there are certain things in our life that, like, they're not in themselves, like, sinful, but if you find yourself, like, thinking more about, like, purchasing enough protein to last you the next 100 years, like, the odds of you being able to use all that are very slim, unless you're Bryce. But for the most people, buying, like, too much of anything is bad. And so laying up your treasures on earth is, Jesus specifically says, you are not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to save $6 million over the course of your life so that you can retire and whenever you die have $6 million. Like, what's the goal in that? Like, he says specifically that do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves can break in and steal. I mean, that says it right there. If we're trying to get as much stuff as we can, and all of that stuff can be destroyed and stolen and rust and just thrown away, like, what are we really saving for? We should be spending more of our time and more of our money on things that we can, like, treasure in heaven rather than what we can on earth. And that's not saying, like, stop spending money on yourself. Like, that's sinful. Like, you shouldn't buy workout supplies. That's saying you should really have, your focus should be laying up on treasures in heaven opposed to earth. Not all, like, your focus should be there, not your focus on, like, earthly things. Second to last thing is do not be anxious. And so, what are some of the things, like, college students are very anxious. What are some of the things that we are anxious about? Like, in our grades, very important. Girls, that's huge for the guys' dorm, yeah.
Kind of just what happens every day.
Sports.
Everyday stuff,
Yeah.
sports, the future. We're all thinking about what job we're going to get, all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, we're thinking all kinds of stuff like that. What we'll be anxious for, what we're worrying about. We're spending countless hours every single day worrying about what's next, test that we have tomorrow. We're pulling all-nighters just so that we can finish the homework that's due Monday. We have all these anxieties and worries, and what Jesus is calling us to do here is to, like, let Jesus worry about our stuff. Like, we don't need to worry about, like, these, like, grades and stuff. To an extent, we need to get good grades and show, like, Jesus the time and respect that he deserves by, like, showing him that you're working for him and his work. But we shouldn't be building up, like, anxiety and worry about doing everything perfect, because God's in control of everything, and he will take care of our future, and he will take care of the outcome of a sports game and our daily activities. Like, God is in control of everything. And our last thing that we'll be covering is judging others. What are some of the things in the dorms that we might specifically judge about people?
How much hair they have.
How much hair they have? Okay.
Kind of
Don't
how
laugh
they
about
act.
How they act.
We kind of say, "Oh, you're a Christian. Why do you do this?"
Mm-hmm. So people are, like, maybe going directly against, like, some of the teachings, like,
Yeah.
stuff like that. We're judging them for sinning in an aspect. I mean, some of the like big things that like I've noticed in the dorms is if somebody cusses a lot or plays music really loud that cusses a lot, there's a lot of judgment there. Like, what are you doing here? Like, come on, you're at a Christian college. Like, just really harsh judgment there. If somebody goes out and drinks, I mean, one, it's against the rules, so obviously there's punishment that needs to be like given there. But there's a huge stigma and judgment attached to the people that make those choices with their life. Like, whether they're in the dorms or not, if like they're go to MCC and they drink a lot, like they're gonna get judgment from our school. And like from the Bible, from what Jesus says is, judge not that you be not judged. For the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. And so if we're looking at these people and saying, like, you're a sinner, you go against, like, the rules of MCC this way, and then you turn around and you break the rules of MCC in a different way that's, like, not as bad in our terms, like, that doesn't make it any better that, like, you're giving yourself the judgment there. So, like, if somebody's drinking and you're saying, hey, like, you shouldn't be drinking, and, like, you're a horrible person for doing that, and then you go and, like, the rules of, like, you go and not do any of your homework at all, like, you're breaking the rules of your classroom, and he's breaking the rules of the school. I mean, where do you draw the line? Like, of course, there's punishment established by the school for drinking, but you're sitting over here breaking your classroom rules. You're not showing up to class. You're going to class and getting on Facebook or Balloons Tower Defense all game. Like, you can't be judging them for breaking the rules when you are yourself breaking the rules. You're giving yourself a level to be judged on. And so Jesus calls us not to judge those, encourage them rather in their pursuit to do better, to follow God's law and MCC's rule more fully. And so we have all these teachings, and we know like what the Bible like says in this aspect of what God's will is and how we should follow it. And so, like, I encourage you guys to take the piece of paper that has like heaven depicted on it, and I encourage you guys to hang it around, like maybe in your room, on your fridge, around the dorm room, somewhere that you'll see it. Maybe, yeah, that's a perfect spot right there on the wall. And so, like, just encourage you to look at your heaven and try and just look and remember some of the aspects from the Bible and God's Word and His teaching about how you should be, like, living your life and how you can work and do the things that God tells us to do so that we may enter God's heaven. Because that's the ultimate, like, goal. That's what Jesus is telling these people in the passage, that many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we cast out demons in your name? Do mighty works in your name? And he will declare that he never knew you. But if you know God's will and you know God's word and you practice those things daily, whenever you do meet God in heaven, he will welcome you with open arms and allow you to be with him in heaven. And so I send you guys off with that encouragement, and thank you for participating.
What?
He's hot.
Can I get a wave?